acceptance from UMKC, but it comes in an envelope with 2 letters that if you hold them side by side, they look identical. The first one has a personal handwritten note from the dean. It's like, looking forward to meeting you. I heard about your story. Would love to have you, yada, yada. So I'm thinking that she sent me, and this is an idiot move right here. This is my dumb moment. I don't read the second letter. I'm so excited.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back again to my podcast. My name is Velia Chavez. And today I'm excited because I have 2 awesome guests joining me this nice, wonderful Friday. It's Red Friday, so we have some red lights going on. By the time you watch this, probably the Chiefs will be on their way to the Super Bowl.
That's the goal.
That's the goal.
They will.
So, welcome, guys. Thank you so much for coming over.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us.
Thank you. Well, I'm excited to have you here because I see you guys are both an amazing couple. You guys both do amazing things. I see that you guys have a great support system. Mary's there always being your biggest cheerleader. And just kind of, but what I know and follow you guys on social media and the times we've met before, I know you've had an amazing journey. You've had a lot of challenges, but you've overcome a lot of obstacles and you've gone a long way. So I'm very excited to see your growth professionally and in your family and everything. So thank you so much for being here to share your story with us today.
Absolutely. Yeah, looking forward to it. So hit me.
Okay, so tell us first, who is Anthony Moreno? Where is he from? Where did he come from?
That's an interesting question because I've had that same question myself most of my life because I've lived in just about every corner of Kansas City. My parents had me very young, so I was born in 1984. My parents were 19 years old. And so, as you can imagine, being in a historically Mexican-American family, when you get married, the expectation is that you leave the nest, you go out on your own. So my parents were expected to go out on their own and raise this newborn baby at 19 and kind of find their way. So in doing so, I've lived everywhere. I've lived on the West Side. I've lived in Midtown. I've lived all over Kansas City, the Roanoke area. We moved all over quite a bit. Waldo. We lived in KCK for a year, so I did spend some time in KCK. And then we settled in Raytown. Kind of once my family started to kind of get their feet under them, my parents started to have structure stability in their careers. We moved to Raytown, and I ended up going to Raytown South Middle School and Raytown South High School. So that's an interesting question because the majority of my childhood friends, I would say, are from the West Side, Kansas City. Yes. And that's where I spent my youth running the streets, spending the night at grandma's house. But then I did have this large part of my childhood where I spent in Raytown. Never kind of really felt grounded anywhere but for the West Side where grandma was from, and kind of where my childhood friends were.
Wonderful. Yeah. So tell us, how did you meet Mary?
We get that question a lot. So everybody that knows us knows that Mary and I are 10 years apart. So I actually met Mary when I was 18 years old. I did not know. I didn't know at the time that she was 10 years older than I am. I just knew that we had worked together. And one of my good friends at the time had told me on the way to work that day, he's like, "Oh, you'll probably like Mary. You'll probably like Mary." And I did. She made chorizo and eggs the first day at work.
Oh, wow.
And she had me from that minute. I had fallen in love with her basically from the moment I saw her. She was beautiful. No way in the world did I think she was 10 years older than I was, about maybe 3 or 4. And yeah, so we met at work. We used to work for Procter & Gamble through a temp agency. And, we were both still fairly young, still trying to figure out what the heck we were going to do with our lives. And this was just a temporary job jump for me. I left the post office as a temp, went to go work at this place with you as a temp. And then we hit it off. I mean, the entire crew that worked there were all pretty good friends and we all partied together. And I think within a couple of years we were married. We married in 2006. And of course, I found out that I was inheriting 2 stepsons. And very quickly after we met, Mary was pregnant. So our 20-year-old Joe.
You gotta catch up.
I mean, I mean, historically in my family, we have kids young. So we had our first child together, Joseph, who's at K-State now. He'll be 21 this year. And Stephen and Raymond, who are 30 and 31 now, my two stepsons that I've raised basically since we've been together. And then we've got our little knucklehead Cruz that is 11. He'll be 12 in March. Yeah. So that's how we met. I don't know. What was the next question?
That's awesome. Mary looks great because I know we went to high school together, and she doesn't look like she's 10 years older than you. You look older than her.
I get that all the time. My hair's gone. I won't take my hair off. But yeah, and I've gotten that quite a bit. The people were surprised, and they were like, "I thought you were older than her." Well, and then I am 6'2", 260 pounds, and she's 4'11". So there's that too.
You look great, but that means happy wife, happy life, right? So that means you keep her happy, keep her glowing, keep her looking.
That's the goal. Yeah, that's the idea.
Awesome. Okay, so you guys met at 18. You were working. At what point did you go into law school?
So obviously, having kids and finding out through our dating and our relationship early on, I felt very rushed. I was like, man, she is 10 years older than I am. She does already have two kids. Now we have a child together. I got to get moving. Because what did I say earlier? You get married, the expectation is you take care of your own family. So once my parents found out that we were married, they were like, oh, really? Mm-hmm. Time to go. And so where I come from, it's not, in my childhood, it was never expressed like you could be whatever you want. Mm-hmm. That's not a thing. The rich kids where I come from, their parents typically work for Burlington Northern Santa Fe, UPS, FedEx. Like the rich kids where we came from, those were the jobs that those parents had. Right. They weren't lawyers and doctors. I didn't know any lawyers. Mm-hmm. So getting to law school, I had to do what I had to do to support the family, but I never thought that law school was a possibility for me.
Got hired back at UPS.
Well, it's the post office. Mm-hmm. So I got back on. I took the test back in the day. You used to have to take a test to work for the post office, and I thought, okay, if I get this job, I'm done. Just waiting to retire. And I did. I got hired on at the post office in 2006, which is why we got married shortly after that. Because I thought, I'm done. Right? I got my career. This is one of the jobs that everybody wants. Everybody talks about. Benefits, health insurance, and that's why we got married so quickly too. Is like, let's get all the kids on the insurance and get everybody's teeth taken care of and whatnot. And I spent 5.5 years working for the U.S. Postal Service in Kansas City, Kansas. At what used to be called the Bulk Mail Center. Now it's called an NDC, the KCK NDC, whatever that means. And I hated it. You hated it. I hated it. I became depressed fairly quickly within the first couple of years, and this is back when depression wasn't a hot word. Mm-hmm. This is back when depression was unacceptable, especially in the Mexican culture. Mm-hmm. And so I was unhappy. We went to therapy. We actually took the kids to a therapy session at one time, and explained my circumstances to the therapist. And he looked at me. He says, "You're depressed." Mm-hmm. I said, "What do you mean?" And he says, "Well, you feel trapped. You feel like you have to work this job. You can't go where you work anywhere else and make the same kind of money." Mm-hmm. So he's like, "But that's not true. You're a very intelligent person. You can go to school. You can write a book." Literally is what he said. "You can do whatever you want." Mm-hmm. But that was not something that was ingrained in me from early on as a child. It was like you graduate from high school and you go to work, and that's kind of the end of it. But when I moved to Raytown, I was like the only Latino there. It was like by the time I graduated high school, half the school was white, half the school was black, and then there was me. Like that was really it. And so hanging out in a different environment is what sort of started to groom me into thinking college was an idea. Mm-hmm. And college is where you get to make yourself, your money, your life income, your career, how you support your family. Mm-hmm. And that's the ticket, right? So we were all sold on the idea back then, bachelor's degree is the ticket. Well, I'm at the post office, so I start taking classes and I'm chipping away at my undergraduate degree. I complete my associate's degree and I graduate from Park University with my bachelor's in business administration and marketing in 2009. So I've been at the post office for 3 years at that point, and I started applying to jobs. And this is when the recession hit. And
2008.
yes. And so my bachelor's degree then didn't mean much. I was making about $23 an hour at the time. And anybody who knows me from the post office knows I was making that $23 to sleep in the bathroom most of the time. And
At least he's honest, right?
yeah. And I was sleeping on my forklift for most of the time. But the marketing degree entry level positions were starting out at like $13 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to. You're telling me I got to take a $10 an hour pay cut to use my degree? You got no experience.
Yeah.
I'm stuck, and that's So the depression persists, and I'm working nights. I'm working 6:30 at night to 3 in the morning, and if there's overtime, it's 5 in the morning or 7 in the morning. Then I was getting off of work at 7 in the morning and going to 8 o'clock class. So I'm thinking I'm stuck. Give up the bachelor's degree idea. I'm not going to be in marketing. I'm not going to be in sales. I'm just going to have to stay here because I've got kids to feed and a family to support. Well, Mary at the time starts encouraging me to take the LSAT, the law school entrance exam. Mm-hmm. So why don't you just take the test and see what happens? So I take the test. I sign up to take the test. I graduate in the summer of 2009, and then I take the first LSAT in July or August of 2009, and I bomb it. I don't study for it at all. I just see what I can do, and I bomb it. I score a 138 or a 139, which is low. And I start Googling around. UMKC does not accept anybody. Like, the schools are not going to accept you with that kind of score. So I enroll in a course through Kaplan. I take a prep course. I get a few hours to myself at night, go in the basement, and it's like an online assisted prep course. And I take it again, and I nail it. And when I nail it, I apply to UMKC. I don't think I really apply anywhere else because that's the only. No. I mean, we talk about it. We're like, we can't move. We can't uproot the family and go anywhere across the country. Mm-hmm. So I receive a letter of acceptance from UMKC, but it comes in an envelope with 2 letters that, if you hold them side by side, they look identical. Mm-hmm. The first one has a personal handwritten note from the dean. It's like, looking forward to meeting you. I heard about your story. Would love to have you, yada, yada. So I'm thinking that she sent me, and this is an idiot move right here. This is my dumb moment. I don't read the second letter. Mm-hmm. I'm so excited. I just read the first letter, and I'm thinking she sent me a personal copy and an official copy. Mm-hmm. I put the letter away in my shoebox or whatever, where I keep all my college stuff. So then we start thinking, you're not allowed to work your first year at all in law school. You have to commit to the full-time day program.
Wait a minute. What did the second letter say?
Get there. We'll get there. Mm-hmm. So I am the primary earner. Uh-huh. I'm getting ready to lose my job to go to law school. How in the heck are we going to do this? We're living on our own. We got our own bills. The only way this is going to work is if we can get approved for some sort of student loan. We're going to have to move in with my parents if that's an option. And
panic sets in. Now it's like, how do we pay for this?
Because I think I'm accepted. I don't even remember, like March, April, and the semester starts in the fall. August. And so we're trying to find the money.
Yeah.
And we're not getting the money anywhere. Yeah. And
this is a few months. We're
panicking. This is like 3 months go by. Like it's. And like, oh man, what are we going to do? And then I go back and I open the letter again, and I read the second letter. And the second letter is my scholarship offer for a full ride to UMKC, all expenses paid.
Awesome.
And that letter's been sitting there the whole time. We've been panicking, trying to figure out how we're going to afford to go. So now we can afford to pay for school. Now we just have to be able to live. We got to be able to eat, which my parents were a big help with that. They did let us move back in for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
We moved back out my middle of law school.
Yeah. I was working at Children's Mercy, so
she had to hold down the fort because the student loan the scholarship was enough to pay for all of my tuition and books and fees.
Right.
And then I took out a student loan to help support us while we were in school, and then she worked full time. Yeah. And then Cruz comes along, right? Cruz came our first year of law school. August, right before school's about to start, she tells me that she's pregnant.
Oh, wow.
So the most difficult year, the scariest year, the entire year, she was pregnant. So that was rough. Yeah.
So did you keep working throughout your pregnancy, or did you have to stop working?
All
I think
up
she
until
went
the end.
all the way up until
Yeah.
the end.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this has been a journey for both of you. So it's
Which is why when you messaged me and you were like, I want to hear your story, and I was like, well, she's a big part of the story.
Yeah.
So I think
because
it's
yeah,
only
you had
right.
to have the support, because she could have been like, no way, you're not leaving me by myself to raise these kids, and you be focused in school. So that's
and it
huge.
was, I mean, the first year it was 16 hours a day. I mean, school was 16 hours a day because they expect you to treat it like a job. You're expected to be on campus 8 to 5, and then you're expected to spend a minimal number of hours in the evenings reading. And the reading is 150 pages a night.
Yeah, it's not.
And it's dense material. You're not reading like the Lord of the Rings. You're reading about tax law and, tort law and criminal
Foreign
procedure.
language. Yeah.
That's how they described it. They described it when we got there, that it's like getting dropped off on a foreign island where everybody speaks a foreign language and you just have to learn
Figure
it.
out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. I was thinking back when you mentioned that you got out of college with your bachelor's making $8.50. You said
It was
$10 less.
It was $10 less.
$13.
Yeah, it was $13 an hour.
Something similar happened to me. I was working at the school district. I was making like $15 an hour. I got my bachelor's, got my first job at a Spanish radio station, making $7.25 an hour.
Yeah. Which is okay if you're single and you got no kids, but if you got bills to pay,
you got a house,
that's not going to cut it.
Yeah, and I had a house, I had kids, I had a whole family, and so, but I knew I had to start from somewhere to get the experience. If I didn't get the experience there, it was never going to happen.
Right.
And you had to have the support to do it,
Yeah.
because you can't. You're not surviving with kids and bills at $7
That's
an hour.
That's why people are like, "Why are you always hustling, Velia?" Because I'm just used to being on.
Yes.
I had to make my money, and I'm always used to doing 1,000 things because I had to go to school, work, and everything. So if I'm not busy, I'm not happy.
I would share that you said it perfectly. Like that's exactly what I tell people. Because they don't teach you how to run a business in law school. They don't teach you how to grind. They don't teach you how to file your taxes. They don't teach you how to keep your books. And you don't have to have a business or political science degree to go to law school. It's literally you can have a sociology degree. I mean, you've got all walks of life coming into law school. So that's what has set me apart, I guess, and that's what sets entrepreneurs apart. We grind. There's never enough.
Right.
How much money is enough to feel secure? Well, I don't have it now, so I have to keep grinding.
You just don't want to go back to
where you were.
Ooh, yeah.
That's the scariest part about it. That's what keeps you getting up every day. I wake up every morning with my heart rate through the roof. Let's go.
Yeah, because you don't want to give it up. You learned how to live good, and now you don't want to.
You don't want to go back.
Yeah.
If I gotta go back, I know what it's like. We can do it, right? But God willing, that's not what the plan is for us.
Right. If you can avoid it. So tell me, when you first graduated from law school, where was your first job? Did you open shop right away, or did you go work for someone else?
Right away. So law school is incredibly difficult. Okay. So what I tell people is like law school is the hardest thing I'd ever had to do until I had to study for the bar. Then studying for the bar is the hardest thing I've ever had to do since law school. And then the hardest thing I ever had to do was sit for the bar. It's 2 days long. It's 8 hours a day, 2 days in a row. And they only offer it twice a year. And you can't, even though you have all this education and you know what you're doing, you don't pass the bar, you get no license, you get no income.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm terrified, but it's a motivator. Fear is a motivator. And so I go and I sit for the bar. Then you have to wait like 2 months. You sit for it in July, you get your results in September, October.
Yeah.
September. So you're sitting on it for 2 months, wondering, I can't work during this 2 months. Right. What am I going to be able to work, or am I going to have to take it again in February? And so get my results back, and I was supposed to wait for her because they send an email with a list of everyone's name that passed the bar. And so that's how you find out, is you scroll through a list of alphabetical names and you find your name. If you see your name, you passed. If you don't see your name, you're in trouble. So I get the email and I'm at home.
I was on my way home from work.
And I couldn't. I had to see. And I scrolled and I looked and I saw my name and I burst into tears. I started bawling my eyes out and I called her right away. And I said, I fucking passed. And so we might have to cut that part out. But I passed. And we both started crying and we're like, man, we did it. Like, and it comes with in the email a letter that says, you can wait until October to officially swear in Jefferson City with the Missouri Supreme Court, or you can go and present your oath to any notary. I drove down the street to Commerce Bank. I said, swear me in, sign, and right away I started my business September 19th of 2014. And I had a spare bedroom in my house. Mm-hmm. I got a desk for free off of Craigslist. I was still using my laptop from law school. I got chairs for free off Craigslist, free file cabinets. I kept my cost to a minimum. I got a free Google Voice number. That is what I still have. It's the same phone number. And I was working out of our house for probably 3 months.
Yeah.
It was only a few months.
I was going to say weeks, but maybe it was.
And when you're in law school, everybody talks about like the big firms, Shikardi and Bacon, Hush Blackwell, Polsinelli. These big firms is kind of what everybody's dream job is, to be a corporate lawyer and make the income. Those folks back then were starting out at 6 figures right out of law school. Mm-hmm. And they typically were making that same salary during their summer internships. Those were big salary jobs. But I knew going in, I have a family. The time that you have to commit to graduating in the top 10% of your class, it just wasn't going to be me. Mm-hmm. And I always figured I know that those attorneys are expected to bill a certain amount of hours per year, per month, per week, per year, because those attorneys are an investment. If I'm paying you $120,000 a year, I expect that you're going to make this firm $500,000 a year, right? In billable hours. Well, I figured if I was going to work 100 hours a week, I wanted to keep all that money.
Right.
If I'm going to work 100 hours a week, it's not going to be for Mr. Shook, Mr. Hardy, or Mr. Bacon. It's going to be for me and us.
Moreno.
And yeah, so that's how Moreno Law was born. And I was, for the first few months, I worked out of the house. And then I just started reaching out to people. I found a mentor. Mm-hmm. And I found another mentor in a co-officing space. Mm-hmm. And they were all telling me, probably need to get an office space, and and working in family law and criminal defense at the time, they were like, you really don't want your clients knowing where you live, if at all possible. Mm-hmm. Right. Opposing parties knowing where you live, that kind of thing, just for general safety purposes.
Oh yeah.
And I've learned that for sure now. And 9 years of practice, you definitely want an office space. I spoke to a judge in Platte County, Judge Eckel, and he looked at me and said, you need an office. I was like, okay, Judge, we get an office. So then we moved into an office space, and little by little we grew to bigger office, a little bit bigger office, a little bit bigger office. Now we've got a beautiful space downtown, just south of the city market at 6th and Walnut. And we've got a great staff. We've kind of shifted and added and subtracted staff over the years. And that was a learning process in itself, not knowing how to hire, how to fire, what does that look like? How do you learn how to be a good boss? Yeah. And if you ask my staff today, they'll tell you you're not a boss. Like
more like a big brother.
More like a big brother. I try to treat my work employees, my staff, like family. We're family.
You spend just as much time with your team as you spend with your family.
100%,
or even more sometimes.
100%, and they'll tell you that's how they get treated. If somebody gets sideways with my family, then we're going to have a discussion about that, right? Mm-hmm. If client or no. And I require a certain minimal level of respect and courtesy from other attorneys that contact my office, and because we're going to be professional and courteous with you. Mm-hmm. So, I'm living a dream. This is my dream come true. We've seen our ups and downs as a couple. We've seen our ups and downs as a business, but for the most part, life is pretty dang good.
Yeah, I see you guys have fun. I see you guys.
We do. You have to.
Yeah.
Especially in the type of law that he works in. It's a lot. It'll mess you up.
Yeah, I can imagine. I was having a conversation with Denise too, and we were talking a little bit about the emotional impacts of
Mhm.
dealing with families and cases, and how sometimes
Kids.
you can't help them, and sometimes you can, and
Sometimes they don't want to help themselves.
yeah.
It's very difficult. As a domestic attorney or a family attorney, um, I'm meeting people typically when they're at their worst point that they've ever experienced in their life. Their marriage is falling apart, or their relationship has just fallen apart, and now children are being withheld, or there's a tug of war going on with kids. Um, and for some reason, if I had to tell you what my specialty was within family law, it is very high conflict custody battles. Everybody's practice sort of takes on its own personality. Some lawyers are more known for handling very high asset divorces, people owning, strings of 7-Elevens and things like that. That's not typically what we do. Typically, our client base is dealing with a very high conflict custody battle, typically associated with allegations of abuse or neglect of children. Substance abuse is very heavy in my practice, lots of drug use, alcohol dependency, domestic violence. So yeah, we would like to have fun when I get home, because work is tough. I take on a lot. It's impossible for me. Like I'm more of an empath. So I take on a lot of the emotional toll of what my clients are going through. Sometimes it comes back to bite me in the ass because I take it on too much.
Right.
And at the end of the day, clients still could not be happy. And it's like, man, I give it.
Right.
Whether they see it or not, I give it my all. I mean, just here recently, we were able to retrieve a child that a dad had not seen in 4 months.
Biological father.
He was the biological father, and he was he had raised this child since birth, was never on the birth certificate, and mom had always had a history of drug use. So mom would pop in and out of the child's life once or twice a year. She pops in September-ish of last year, asks for a visit. Dad says, okay. Mom says, well, I want her to spend the night, and I want to take her to school on Monday. Dad says, no, that's not a good idea. We've never done that. And she would need to get her backpack, her laptop, all that stuff that she needs. Mom agrees and says, okay. And then mom takes off with the child. We don't know where. We find out that the location she's staying at is in a house in Independence, Missouri. And we begin all of the procedure that's involved with establishing paternity in the appropriate jurisdiction. And of course, my client is freaking out that mom with a history of severe methamphetamine use has taken off with this child, and he doesn't know where they are. And in the beginning, there's like some veiled messages from the child through some third parties. Where are you? I can't, mom's telling me X, Y, Z. And so child is fairly afraid, she's not going to see her dad anymore. Well, moving down the road, we learn that while mom is gone with the child, mom dies of an overdose. So before I can get her served, which is required to get dad on the birth certificate and negotiate parenting time, yada, 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 mom dies. And we only find out through my private process server, and when he's trying to locate her, because she doesn't show up for 2 court dates. She files a restraining order against my guy, so she doesn't show up for these 2 court dates. And my private process server tells me, hey, I'm Googling her name and this obituary is popping up. And there's a GoFundMe for funeral services. Well, now, shit, how do I get her served and get this kid back? Because she's now being held by stepdad because mom was married.
Oh,
And so legally giving her back.
And because my client's not on the birth certificate, he has no way to prove that he's the biological father.
But he's been raising her all this time.
All this time. So my client comes in maybe 3 weeks ago, and it's just me in the office. Everybody else is working from home, and he just so happens to catch me. And I've called multiple attorneys, multiple colleagues that are the heavy hitters in Kansas City, that they have the answers to everything. I've never run into it, Anthony. I've never run into it. You know, I don't know what to do. You might need to open a probate estate for the mom, blah, blah, blah. That's getting technical, but I've got no answers for him. And he comes in, he's like, Anthony, and he speaks Spanish. So we're communicating in Spanish, and he's telling me, my daughter, I haven't seen in 4 months. She is at this house with this guy and his like 25, 26-year-old son. She's a 13-year-old girl. I'm scared. And I said, fuck this. We're going to get her. We're going to get her. And so I start printing off whatever I can from the court that I've established, that I've been able to file to date. I go and I get a copy of the mother's death certificate from Vital Records. And the death certificate says that she overdosed from fentanyl and methamphetamine. And as soon as I see the fentanyl and the methamphetamine, I'm like, dude, we're going to get her today. I call my client, meet me at the address where we know the stepdad lives. We're going. And we went, and we were there for probably 2 hours. I tried to speak to the stepdad myself. He refused to let her go. I called the cops. I spoke to the cops. The cops were able to negotiate it, showed him the paperwork that we had, which was not necessarily the paperwork I needed, but I had enough to where the cops were convinced that this was dad, and the child came out. They started bawling. They hugged. He hugged me. He's like, thank you so much. That's why I do what I do. Like we've had to do some cowboy stuff like that a couple times where we're pulling up at somebody's house and we're going to figure this out. Even the police officer was like, you're an attorney? I was like, yeah.
You're a bounty hunter.
Yeah.
Well, no, I dress like this every day, so I'm not in a suit and tie. And it's like during the week that it's freezing cold. And the cops were like, we've never had an attorney come out to one of these before, man. And one of the police officers like, you got a card? Like, absolutely, man. That's how we do things. Like
kids.
Yeah. I mean, and I call her and I'm bawling, like we're crying, like we got her. You know what I mean? It's been 4 months, and now he's taking his baby home. And now I've got some time to figure out the rest of the procedure. Now that we know she's safe. But that's what we wanted to make sure was going to happen.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I remember the first time you and I met. Do you remember the first phone call?
Did you cold call me from?
I cold called you from
Hey,
sell you some advertising.
Yeah, I remember, and you're like, let's do a commercial.
Yeah. That's
Oh my gosh, that commercial! I look like I'm 12 years old, and it's like, what area do you practice in? Every area. It's in Spanish. Yeah.
But when we first met in your office and we kind of talked about what some of your passions were, things like that, I mean, you were headed that direction to family law. At that point, you were still like trying to figure it out.
Yes.
But just kind of on your background and hearing how passionate you were about helping families, I kind of knew you were going to be going this way. And so I'm glad to see you doing this. I know, and I felt that you were going to be successful at it, and you've proved it, and you can tell that you really love what you do and you want to help families. And so I'm very excited to know you, to have you here as one of my guests. You were like on the top of my list. You just took longer to answer, but you were like,
that's for a reason, I promise.
On the top of my list. But I'm happy, and I'm happy that you have a great support system with Mary. I'm happy to see your boys that are growing up, and you're setting a good example for them and raising all of them like they were your own children. Sometimes you can see the differences even on social media when some kids
absolutely
are treated one way and other kids the other. So you can tell everything's like a great, happy family. Obviously, I'm sure there's probably not so perfect moments. No family's perfect.
Right.
But I really love seeing you guys. I really love seeing your guys' love for each other, how you guys connect on that level. It's really awesome.
And doing what I do for a living is really, I mean, it's hurt and it's helped our relationship, right? Like it's hurt to an extent because, I mean, it changes you. This career path, it changes you. You're definitely a lot more cynical. You're definitely a lot. I get lied to every single day, right? People hiding things from me, from the opposing party, from the court. that level of dishonesty takes a toll on you. You begin to have trust issues with people just because you get lied to so regularly. So it's definitely affected me that way. But on the other side of it, it's helped me have a different appreciation for what I have because I see people in how their relationships have broken down, the things that have taken place, the people who refuse therapy, and especially working with a lot of Latino clients. Like over time, we have gone from a culture that doesn't believe in therapy or admitting when things are wrong, and going from a culture that sweeps bad things under the rug, right? And to now, I am getting more Latino clients that are participating through Maddie Rhodes and in different types of therapeutic intervention and resources that are available to them now. Because, I mean, for sure, me growing up, we didn't go to therapy. It was not a thing, right? You were going to power through that.
Yeah.
So that's been a good thing, right? Like I definitely have a different appreciation for growth and emotional maturity and communication.
Good.
Yeah.
But it's funny how you say how in our culture it wasn't, what's not funny, but just thinking about it, how if someone had a mental illness back in the day, it was like, oh, somebody did witchcraft on them. They did brujeria. Or it was always something else. They're on drugs or something, but it was never, hey, this person needs help. You know, there's problems like that. Medication, yeah.
Treatment.
Yeah, because I remember growing up as a kid hearing stories, and they're like, yeah, she had a curse done on her because she did this and she did that or so and so. And it was like, no, they need it, you know, and so.
They had a bad day. They need help.
It's not
this.
So I'm glad that the information is getting out there, and I'm glad there's people like you out there that really genuinely cares about the families, that you're not just doing, I mean, the money's great and it helps, but you can tell sincerely. When I first met you, I knew you were genuine. And so I know when people have asked me for divorce attorneys, I'm still waiting for my referral fees. No,
I will take care of you.
I'm just kidding. No, this is enough for me that you're here, that you gave me, you know, your time. I know your time is valuable, because if you were billing me for this right
now, I'd be in trouble. No, I was excited about it because I like the new podcast culture. I'm a big podcast. I don't listen to them all the time, but I like them on TikTok, and I like all the different podcasts I see. I've thought about doing one of my own. I just could never really put up my finger on what I wanted to do, because I think we could have a cool one. And I think that there's also some opportunities for me to expose the firm and educate on.
Definitely.
But do I have the time to do the editing? I could shoot all day long, but doing the editing, I think, is what would be
I know some
cool.
people.
I would. Let's talk about it, because for sure, because I'm anticipating that when we're done with this one and you get it all put together, that I'd like to share it on my website too. You know, because it's a story that gets people to know me, and I think that's important when you're selecting an attorney, that you have a connection.
And we can collaborate. We can do an ongoing series, like once a month or something, where we give information.
Yeah,
have these conversations.
That would be nice.
So we're committing to it. We're gonna do it.
I don't mind. I need somebody like you that's going to push me to do, like, because you pushed me to do this one, right? Yeah. Like I knew I wanted to do this. It was something that I would want to do with you. But like I'm taking off an afternoon on a Friday to do it. So typically I'd be at work until 4:00. So I need somebody to stay on me, because if I'm left to my own devices, it'll just remain an idea.
We'll work on the logistics, but we'll make it happen.
Sounds good.
Awesome. So I know you have my hour's almost up, and I don't want to get charged for overtime.
You're fine.
But tell us, what advice do you have for someone who maybe is thinking about going to law school, or they are in law school and they don't know which direction to go? What helped you to decide, you know, the path that you needed to take? Or do you have any mistakes that you made? So maybe do you wish you would have started with the firm first to get a little bit more experience? Or are you happy with the choices you made so far? What would you do differently, basically?
I promise you, every single crossroads that I've ever come to in my career path, from education to financing education to whether I start my own firm or go work for somebody else, every single time I've been deathly afraid. So don't let the fear keep you from moving forward, right? Do it afraid. What's the definition of bravery and courage, right? And I'm not saying that I, any kind of rah, 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 brave guy, but because she'll tell you, like the first time I had to hire an employee, the first time I had to rent an office space, deathly afraid, terrified. Am I signing my life away in this lease agreement and I'm not going to be able to afford it? Are the clients going to come? Every marketing dollar I've ever spent, including the marketing dollars I spent with you, I always was like, every dollar I spend has got to bring me 3 back. And so I've been deathly afraid every single decision I've ever made. Whether, I was going to be able to go to UMKC or if I was going to have to go somewhere else and we were going to have to move because it was going to be cheaper and more doable. So I guess, first of all, the best advice I can give anyone who wants to go to law school is to go spend a day with an attorney. Go spend a couple days with different attorneys in different practice areas, because what we do every day is not Law and Order. Right. The timelines and the chronology for Law and Order and the First 48 and these shows that you see where there's instant results and instant verdicts and things like that, that's not real. No. For most of my day, I'm in an outfit just like this, sitting down at my desk, punching keys and on the phone. Now trial is fun, but trial only comes around a handful of times a year because it's the most expensive route possible. And it's the route that you have the least control over the outcome if you're the client. Settling is not always attractive because it's always a compromise and a give and take, but it's a way for the client to have control over the outcome. Trial, we're just throwing everything at the wall and the judge is going to tell us what sticks. And typically, both people walk away not super happy with what the judge gives them. So go spend time in an attorney's office and shadow. You can call me. You can try to call me. Get a hold of Velia, and Velia will get a hold of me. You can call my secretary. You can call my secretary, Carly, and she's probably going to be like, you want to come in for what? But yeah, explain to her that you're interested in law and you want to shadow me, and we will get you in, no problem. I got no problem with that because there's a lot of law students that go to law school for various reasons. And then when they get into the practice of law, it's not what they expected it was going to be. Yeah. And now you're unhappy in your career. People ask me all the time, you still love what you do? I wouldn't rather be doing anything else. Of course, what would I rather be? I'd rather be retired. But as long as I have to work, this is the career that I choose. And so because also the different practice areas, right? That's why I say shadow different attorneys from different practice areas, because my day-to-day life is going to look different from a personal injury attorneys or a criminal defense attorneys or an estate planning attorney or a corporate attorney. And so depending on what area of law you want to practice in, because I did not want anything to do with family law when I came out of law school. When I went into law school, I come from massive dysfunction. She comes from dysfunction. We come from, a life of manipulation and domestic violence and substance abuse and alcoholism.
We definitely thought it was going to be a criminal
defense, personal injury. The issue with personal injury is you don't get paid unless you win, right? You see those commercials. I only get paid if I win. Well, I need to get paid whether I win or lose. I got bills to pay. So personal injury, you have to front a lot of the costs. Criminal defense, I learned very early on that criminals who are alleged criminals don't pay their attorneys. I wasn't making enough money on those cases. I had met a mentor. His name is Abe Cool, and he's still an attorney out in Lee Summit. He's amazing. He took me under his wing for no reason whatsoever. He owed me nothing. I didn't know this guy, just a super genuine, nice guy. Took me under his wing and he said, I will mentor you. You can call me for any question you have about family law, but do me a favor. Before you call me, I want you to try and find the answer yourself because I'm busy too. And in 9 years of practice, I've had to call him probably twice. Now I call him for other reasons also, but for really complex legal questions like the case I described earlier, he was one of the guys I called. It was like, I haven't had that happen before. Right. So you're going to want to figure out what practice area you want to get into, determine if you really want to be an attorney, determine, and this is what I tell my own son, what type of lifestyle do you want to have? Because money isn't everything. money is definitely what my goal was in the beginning, right? Was we come from very humble beginnings. We want to provide our children, and we want to have a different lifestyle. We want to have a vacation, nice cars, nice house. We wanted the security that money had to offer us because we had been living paycheck to paycheck for so long together.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tell my son, do you want the type of lifestyle that we have?
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
Happiness is what we want for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the same advice I would give to anyone considering law school, because it's a massive amount of debt.
Mm-hmm.
It is an incredibly difficult experience. You're going to pull your hair out. I mean, the most unhealthy I've ever been was during law school.
Mm-hmm.
Multiple Red Bulls throughout the day. Cigarettes I was smoking like a chimney. McDonald's.
Yeah, you're
like
definitely.
You have to learn to hold your bathroom breaks because you're reading so much information. Like we'd be on the third floor of the library, the bathroom's downstairs, and I got to get this stuff read before I go to class. I'm not going to the bathroom. Like you're going to have to do everything quick, fast, and in a hurry. And so before you put yourself through that kind of punishment, you got to be sure that this is the life that you want. And what kind of life do you want? Because there's attorneys of all different income levels, right? And you've got people that work in the public sector that work as prosecutors. That was actually the first job that I applied to, was for the Jackson County Prosecutor's Office. And at the time, the Jackson County Prosecutor's Office was paying $41,000 a year for a full-time, and this is in 2014.
Right.
And I was like,
what?
Again, I can't do that because, and you're going to want me to work 100 hours a week at $41,000. I believe public defenders at the time were at $39,000. I think they've seen an increase since. Oh, and get this, when I applied for the job and I interviewed, they told me it was $41,000 a year with guaranteed 1% increases annually.
Yay.
Wow.
So if that's your passion, is being a prosecutor,
That's
a public
great.
defender, and you want to help the indigent, you want to help victims of crimes, by all means do it. But you got to understand
you need a trust fund.
The reality of it is gas is high and eggs are high. You know, you got to do what you got to do.
Okay. So going back a little bit to your outfit, I know you like being comfortable. I do too. Like, could I show up to work with hoodies every day? But when you go to the court, is your outfit different, or do you go to court in the same outfit?
No. So I come from, I mean, my parents were about respect, right? Like, my parents made a lot of mistakes, but what they did correctly for sure is they taught me respect and respect for myself and respect for authority. So I view the court as it's a very sanct thing for me. Right. That's my football field, right? If my childhood dreams play in the NFL, right? That didn't happen. This is my NFL. This is my Arrowhead, is the courtroom. And so when I go in there, I want to have on my Arrowhead uniform. And so I have my initials embroidered in my collar. I love attorneys that dress to the nines, that really respect the court and their clients. I don't know if you've ever seen those memes where it's like, if your lawyer dressed like this, you going to jail. Like, and it's got the wrinkled pants, and growing up and going through law school and seeing the attorneys that because I did intern for the Jackson County Prosecutor's Office for my entire third year of law school. So I was prosecuting cases and trying cases as a third year law student. And I would see these defense attorneys come in, gorgeous jewelry, gorgeous, the way that their ties were put together, their suits, you could tell who cared about how they presented in court. And the client really does appreciate it. The client really does. Now, I have seen here recently, this is a new thing, the younger generation, they're starting to wear Jordans with their suit. I don't mind that. Like, do your thing, be you. But when I come from, and this kind of goes back to just being a Latino in America, man. Like, back in the day, like, we put our heads down and we went to work, right? Don't cause the scene. Don't call any attention to yourself. Go with the flow. So from the jump, I was a go with the flow kind of guy in law school. I didn't want to ruffle anybody's feathers or go against the grain yet. I wanted to establish myself first. And so I don't wear a suit to work. I wear a suit to court, absolutely. And I make sure that I'm 100% presentable when I get to court. And she tells me how cute I am in the morning when I have my tie on. But at work, in the office, I want my staff to be comfortable with how they present,
Mm-hmm.
and I want my clients to be comfortable. And I've been told numerous times with my clients, a lot of times I walk into the conference room and they're like, "You're the lawyer?"
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I am. And once I start talking, they're like, "Oh, he knows what he's doing."
Yeah.
But I've been told multiple times by clients that it makes them feel more comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm not the stuffy old guy with the
Mhm.
suit on who's got no emotion.
Right.
Like they feel like I'm a real
Mhm.
person. And I've been told that they get that through my website,
Mhm.
through the interviews I've done before,
Mhm.
through my reviews on Google, that they can relate to me.
Yeah, and your office is kind of like your home. You want them to feel comfortable. You want your clients to feel comfortable. And I think there's a time and a place for every type of wardrobe. But I wanted you to talk about that because I knew you were going to say that. But
Yeah.
people think he probably goes like that to the courtroom. But
Yeah.
No. Yeah. What I look like more on my website is what I look like when I get to court.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, when I'm in the office, I want everybody to be comfortable, including myself. And because usually that's where all the heavy lifting is done.
Mhm.
I mean, we're in court for that long, right? And as soon as I get to the car, I'm taking it off.
I also wanted to bring up something that I think is important. I don't want to go too much into it, but because it's important for someone like you who's so successful, but yet still you have to face challenges. Because I know one time there's been a couple of times where you put posts where you kind of been discriminated because they thought maybe you were like a drug dealer because
Mm-hmm.
how did you get this car or what are you doing in this neighborhood? And it was your neighborhood,
Yeah.
So kind of talk a little bit about what that's like.
That's the point I was going to make earlier when I said I didn't want to go against the grain yet, because that's just how I was raised. I was a rule follower. Follow the rules, be a good boy, right? And good things will happen. And so, I mean, during one of my first CLEs, we did it's a continuing education deal at a law school. We went and visited the courthouse, and Judge Youngs was one of the presenters. And Judge Youngs he's a serious dude. and he actually is the one who said, respect the sanctity of the courtroom, respect the history of the courtroom, respect what goes on here, what we've done here over the years. Be presentable, be ready for your case, prepare for your clients, respect the profession. And I took that to heart. And that's, and even though I'm still deathly afraid of Judge Youngs when I'm in front of him, it taught me something. And I took that and I kind of put that in my pocket. It was like, this is how I'm going to be when I come to court. But when I'm not in court, I always had a dream when I was a kid that I would have the Cash Money chain or the Death Row Records chain, because of where, the culture that I grew up in and where I grew up, the people that had that stuff, they sold drugs, right? And I knew that selling drugs was wrong, and I knew that I didn't want to sell drugs, but damn, I sure did like the way they dressed and the cars they drove, and and the way that they were on television, in the movies and such. And so that's the way I live my life. Like, I might look like I sell drugs, but I promise you I don't. Like, this is my law firm logo. So I always wanted to have that version for myself. And I wanted, because I did not grow up seeing lawyers that looked like me, I wanted to give the youth today an image of what's possible. When you think of a lawyer, there's a certain image that comes to mind. Right. And it doesn't look like me. And that's not right. That's not okay. Not. And so I wanted my kids and other kids out there who want to be lawyers but think it's not possible, the same way that I thought it wasn't possible, because I'm a Mexican American, because it's not talked about with us, because it's just not an option for us. I wanted them to look at me and say, man, I can be a lawyer. Look at that dude. That dude looks like somebody who came from my neighborhood. He looks like somebody who still lives in my neighborhood. Yeah. And I can be a lawyer. I don't have to accept what my environment has told me is set out for me. I can break through whatever ceiling I have to. So this is how I relate to my childhood, and this is how I relate to others out there. I want to give the young people today somebody to look at that, man, that dude's pretty cool. He's not stuffy.
Yeah.
He's, and I have run into issues with it. We get looks all the time. I mean, Mary has a neck tattoo. I'm covered in tattoos, when I'm not covered up. And we like our jewelry. We don't, I don't flash it at work or whatever. I don't wear my chain when I meet with clients, because
Or in the court.
Or in the court. It's just when we're on our personal time and we're doing our thing.
Right.
And yeah, we get looks. We still get mistreated. We still get discriminated against when we go to the mall sometime. Mary's not shy about saying something when it happens. And it's an unfortunate part of today's reality that discrimination against Latinos and African Americans and others, it's a real thing. It's a real thing that still exists in our court system. It's a real thing that, there are certain things that likely go on behind closed doors that I'm not privy to that, you can read people. You can read people, and you can read people when they say things the way they do. And it's like, okay, I know where you're coming from. But I'm still of the opinion that's your problem. It's not mine, unless somebody is willing to bring it right here and threaten me physically I don't care what you have to think about me, because I'm the exception to the rule, man. Like I've already established and proven myself, and now it's the next man up, next woman up, who's next to take the opportunity.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I know we can stay here and talk for
all day,
hours.
Yeah.
But I look forward to having you come back.
Yeah.
So we'll do it
down.
part 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yes, I'm down. I think it'd be fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, Mary, for supporting him, because you know how they say behind every great man, there's a great woman. So thank you for being that great woman to support him, so we can have a lawyer that we can all be proud of in our community.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so, thank you guys so much. If there's any last words you want to say before we say goodbye.
No, just I appreciate everybody tuning into Velia's podcast and listening to me jabber on. And if you guys have any questions or comments about our discussion today, I'm happy to come back and answer those.
What's your contact information if anybody needs to hire an attorney?
My website is morenolawkc.com. It's MORENOLAWKC.com. And our office number is 816-200-0467.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who tuned in today. I hope you enjoyed this past. Thank you to everyone who tuned in today. I hope you enjoyed this past.
This pasta.
This pasta. Thank everyone for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. This is Velia saying goodbye.